Welcome back to Pop Goes the Stack, where compliance is a calendar reminder and security is what you add right after launch. Yeah, that's how we do that. I'm Lori MacVittie, and today we want to talk about consequences since no one else scheduled them. Yeah, consequences from agent skills. Remember, agent skills were introduced not even 6 months ago, I'm pretty sure. We're on a tight tech evolution schedule here. And so agent skills are basically plugins for AI agents. They're packaged in YAML because apparently we've learned nothing in the last 20 years. But to be fair, YAML isn't the problem. I mean, it's a problem because people really don't like it, but it's not the problem. The problem is that skills are becoming portable, they're shareable, and they're dynamically loadable, which means they're no longer just configuration files, they're supply chain artifacts. There's that word. That should sound familiar. So they're already attracting attention from attackers. There's already an OWASP top 10 that's out there, specifically focused on just agents. It's agent skills, which is crazy because when's the last time a configuration artifact, right? That's the whole top 10, like APIs, broad, web, broad, no, agent skills. Like this file, we have an entire top 10. So, I mean, people have already been mucking about with agent skills, poisoning them, right? Because they're downloaded. They're something that you can get out of a repository or a GitHub repo, right? Some kind of centralized storage where you can just grab them and then you can use them in real time. So we wanted to dig into agent skills. And to do that, we brought Peter Scheffler. Welcome.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited you're here. Yeah, it has. So I'm glad you actually came back. I was kind of worried.
I told you I would always say yes. Thank you. Yeah.
That is awesome because I know that for like the last 2 months of your life, you've been digging into agents and skills and just really getting into it from a security perspective, which is kind of your forte here. And so, let's talk about, agent skills. Let's talk about both like, what can they do? Like, what kind of skills are we talking about? And then, right, what are those security risks and what are we going to do about them?
So a skill is anything, really. I mean, like you described it well with if it's a YAML file, but that YAML file could be anything. That could be how to use a program, and here's where access the program and those kind of things in that skill file. But it also could be something more broader, like it could be help Peter prepare for a podcast. And it could be the things that I expect the tools to use, and it might explain, here's the things, pull out some points you want to talk about, blah, blah, blah. These are the things you should be looking for. This is the format Peter wants it to be presented to at the end. So it doesn't have to be an atomic thing, like maybe I have a skill for SketchUp to do drawings or something like that. That's a skill, but a skill could also be, prepare for article writing or prepare for a podcast and be much broader. And then it defines all the things that are going to go on inside of that and the output formats that you'd want. That's great because it allows you to sort of say, okay, here's how I want you to work. Here's how I want that my tool system and my tool, I don't know, infrastructure or whatever you want to call the entire environment to work together. The problem is you can throw anything in there, and a tool could add its own skills. So it can say, hey, I need this skill to go do this, and it's going to go add another skill and sort of build, right? So, I mean, I don't write my skill files. I ask an agent to write my skill files, right? So, so what could possibly go wrong in that, right? So,
nothing. I mean, it sounds like we took the early idea of tools. Remember, if the word like, map or weather or this comes back, then call this tool. And a tool was basically a function that called out to something else and did it. And now we've just abstracted that and said, we've got all these great languages and capabilities where we can just execute code dynamically and do things and kind of build on the fly. let's leverage that and define it in this agent skills, right? MD, right?
Yeah,
In
right.
YAML. And then we'll just do that dynamically and that will let us expand, which on the surface sounds like an awesome, awesome idea. I mean, it's not new. I always hear this and I'm like, I think DLLs. And what did we get from that? We got DLL hell.
Yeah,
And we didn't want to go back there, but here we go with agent skills. I mean, the same kind of premise, right? And
yeah,
the problem is if you're writing, I mean, how do you verify it? How do you, if it's written dynamically, how do you verify it? Can you put code in it? What if there's things hidden in it? Like, I mean, nothing, it's not that it's YAML, it's that it's writable, dynamically loadable, executable, and you have kind of no visibility into what's going on in the moment. I think
yeah.
that's the scary part.
That is the scary part, and as that ecosystem, if that's the word I was looking for before, sort of grows, and I want to share a skill with somebody else, or I'm in an enterprise, and how do I share
Oh
those
yeah.
skills, right? And who validates those that they are, and once they're validated, how do you track that? So there's a growing need now for uh, an agent manifest that says, here's what it is, here's who wrote it, it's signed, there's provenance to say where it came from, and its life and all those things, and then there's hashing of the files that are in there, and then there's some sort of ecosystem, and then you have to package all that up, and now you have to push that out. So now do you need some sort of
Huh.
repository or vault where you're storing these, and it quickly becomes, the whole SBOM problem of how do I make sure that the libraries that I've been using in my Node.js libraries from 5 years ago or 10 years ago, how do I know that those have been validated and checked, and that the company allows me to use those? Same thing goes for those skills. I could write a skill file and use it, and maybe I test it and I've got some wherewithal to do it correctly. But if I share that with somebody, or an agent goes and makes a change to that file, that should invalidate that skill. Like, we shouldn't allow it to be used anymore. Maybe it's right. Maybe there's nothing malicious in it, but we need to validate that too. So it becomes a validation and checks and balances process.
Yeah, there were a couple things in there that were intriguing to me. I mean, when you were describing, signed, hashed, certified, all of this, I'm like, oh, so you mean like packages? Like we're talking
Yep.
about like we need npm. Need to be able to apt get our agent skills. However, then you look at that and you go, yeah, but that's not any more secure. I mean, we've done that for here we go
Yeah.
back to the right 20 years. We've done that, and the supply chain is compromised. Now will
Yeah.
be, is today, right now. You don't know, right?
Right.
There's just no way to know. So we're talking about, well, let's just do the same thing with agent skills. And it kind of it frightens me because like that's probably not gonna work any better than what we have. But you also mentioned something in there. You said, put it in the vault. And I'm like, wait, we don't currently store artifacts like that in vaults, right? That's for credentials and secrets and things like
Yeah, but
that. But
it could be a registry or something like that too, right? So you
right,
could use, yeah. So then
could you?
if you could store those as a say a tarball or something like that, and then have that stored in the registry, then there's a way to ship that and have some validation against it. Again, you're relying on it's a trust and a trust and a trust and a trust. It's still not perfect, what if we just rely on these YAML files in of themselves? It's going to come down crashing quickly. Yeah,
Yeah.
really bad. So
Yeah, don't do that. So number one, just don't do that. Like don't trust that because that's like taking code from me. Just don't trust it. Don't I wouldn't trust my own code these days. So don't trust YAML. But if we can't do like, vault, I mean, is there a way to restrict the agent? And you've been digging into this, so I ask you to restrict the agent from what tools it can use or skills that it can load. Like can we back up and say, hey, maybe it's not that all these skills exist, it's that the agent just right unilaterally, uses things, and whatever. Can we restrict it that way?
So there is a hierarchy, right? So you can set a
Okay.
hierarchy in your environment so that you can say you're not allowed to do this. You can only do this with like, sorry, let me just I even had a little chart. So maybe
Ah,
there's several so I don't know if I've come up with this, but I've stumbled across this of it's least agency, right? So we want to so we got least trust, now we have least agency, right?
agency. Right.
So we
Yeah.
want to yeah. So
No,
there's the buzzword. Yeah,
love it.
but we want to be able to say, okay, it can answer something, and cite those answers so that we can give a level of confidence on that. It can retrieve things, it could analyze things, it can draft things and modify things. So those are certain agency things that we can define in our um, in the overall, not just the skill system, but in the application that's calling those skills, right? Because you're always going to have maybe Claude Cowork, or you've written your own environment. There's a bunch of different ways that you could use these things. And so you define that and say, okay, these are the things that you can do without human interaction. You can't execute. You can't ever execute anything. So that the top level system is going to put those in. Now, again, you have to make sure that the system isn't trusting input, because I was saying to you earlier, one of the things that when I was looking having it read my emails, someone could send a prompt in an email, and I might not even see the prompt in the text. It could be, yeah, you would do that. Yes,
I would do
I
that.
know I would do that. So I just not even thinking about it, I would just do it. It would just, my fingers would drop on the keyboard and I would do it. But we would want to make sure that it says don't trust any incoming human generated or user generated content, whatever that's going to be. That could be pictures, that could be YAML files, that could be emails, whatever it's going to be. Like, never take an instruction from those. And if you define those high enough, hopefully the system should be able to protect them. Now, it can't always protect you from those. Like, there's no surefire way to not, but you have to be able to define those kind of actions in that least agency sort of thing. And then you need to define who's asking, what's the action that's being asked, what skills are being used. To your point earlier, you can define these are the skills you're allowed to use. These are the skills you're not allowed to use. So there's certain ways you can do that. Again, a skill can be a tool, or it could be an overall action kind of thing that you want to define. But then you need to define authorization, right? So we typically want to rely on something like OWASP or MTLS or something like that that's going to give us some sort of authorization level, and be able to track those. And auditability and traceability is really important. One of the things that I was looking at Claude Cowork and the tools the system it works. I mean, it's great if you're in the Claude ecosystem, but it's not great if you're stepping outside the Claude ecosystem. And one of the things when I was designing I called it the chef of staff. The yes, come on,
I love it.
I'm an
I love it.
IT nerd pun. So, but when I was designing it, I kind of at the beginning said, well, I don't want to use cloud based LLMs. I wanted to have something I could run locally. And one of the people I was talking to at the time, they were like, well, why? And I said, well, it's more secure. And they're like, is it? And I went, you know what? And I started thinking about that. It's not necessarily more secure. It's more secure because I can control it, but that's not necessarily more secure. So I started to think, okay, now there's certain cases where you want to use cloud-based or frontier models, and there's times where you want to use your own models. And a lot of my customers in the space I'm in, they all want to run everything on prem because it's more secure. Well, is it more secure? You still need authorization. You still need data checks. You still need system. All those things need to be in place. Yes, maybe you're not sharing the inference and the prompts with somebody externally, but that's really the only level of security that you've got. Like anything else, you have to
It's
build
more
around
privacy. Yeah, it's more
it. It's a
about
privacy.
it's privacy and control. I mean, there's valid reasons like using cloud stuff. Tell me about my fish tank. Great. Tell me about this thing. I have a weird question. Who sang this song? But divulging like deeply personal information or critical, right? We know that already. Corporate information does not go in a shared anything, whether it's a shared LLM or a shared app or a shared drive, right? We don't. It's not for
Right.
sharing, right? So sharing is not always caring. Sometimes it's bad. See, I can do it too.
Yeah, you can.
Well, so you were talking about like these restrictions, right? That you can put in there. You put those in that agent skills file, correct? In the
So
definition.
you can put them in the agent skills file, but they're also higher up in the application stack too. Like you want to make sure that the LLM or the application that's calling those has those defined as part of their system prompt or the actual configuration, right? So you want to be able to protect them at that level, and then you still want to protect them at the skills level. Like you have to have them all the way through, because again, it's to me, there's too many opportunities for it to get broken.
So we're going back and putting the boundaries into the application logic, right? As a kind of as a you don't it can't do this. I mean,
Right.
because then I heard you say system prompt, and I'm like, it'll lie, it'll ignore it. Like
It will.
if you are relying on system prompts in general, this is just good advice. If you are relying on that, you're going to get bitten eventually.
Yep.
Like it's
Yeah.
going to turn back on you. 99 times it can actually listen to your system prompt that says don't do this, but the one time it's like that's the only way I can do this thing, it's going to do it. It does not care. It's the biggest honey badger that has ever honey badgered. Like it's
Right.
they're scary.
Yeah.
That's scary. Yeah.
Would another way to do would that be to have a referee model that's in there as well, that's doing refereeing on the prompt? I mean, that's layering security on top of security. I mean, I can see how you can do things like prompt injection protection, but does that help you with? And I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
I'm posing this question.
Yeah, I know it's a good question. I mean, ultimately, I think this is the same problem we have with things like DDoS or any kind of external attack, right? You are not stopping them. Those attacks are going to be launched whether you have protections in place to prevent the damage from them or not. And that's
Right.
kind of the approach we have to start taking with these things and go, look, they are going to lie, they're going to cheat, they're going to do bad things. So how do we stop that action? So if it loads a tool it wasn't supposed to and it tries to execute it, maybe there need to be boundaries in place or safeguards in place that are like, hey, you're not allowed to cross the road there. I'm sorry, go back, right? And just stop it. Is to stop pretending we can use system prompts and other mechanisms to prevent the invocation and just stop the action, right? And just be like, nope, you're done.
Yeah. I think the other side of it too is observability, right? So
Yeah.
assume the breach and assume that you need some sort of forensic data to be able to do that. So being able to pull information out and be able to say back, okay, you know what, we had a breach. I mean, I had a very minor breach this week where someone's personal email was on an email, right? And I said to the customer, hey, your personal email is on here, right? Did you know that? And they're like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. They removed it because it was their email. So you have to say the things happen, they happen. So let's make sure that we call them out, that we have observability, and that we make sure that we correct them as soon as possible. So if we have observability and we have the systems in place to say, hey, you know what, this data was touched, these things were impacted, you can then react to them as quickly as possible. Even if it's minutes, seconds, hours, days, whatever it's going to be, you can still react to them if you've got observability in place.
Awesome plug. I think, and enterprises right now have to be going, what do I do? So, maybe let's, bring it back to two different things here, because I'm hearing two different threads. But the first one, right? I mean, agent skills, what should an enterprise do who's thinking about, but these things are cool and they're helping us and we really want to leverage them because they're becoming the standard already. So what's the best approach to that for an enterprise to stay secure?
So you mentioned earlier, the OWASP agentic rule set. NIST has a framework for agentic tool sets as well. So definitely become aware of what those are and understand what the industry is saying we should be doing. Being able to define the agents that people are allowed to use, those skills that people are allowed to use, define those skills as the ones that are allowed to be used inside of the organization, and then have a repository where we've got some process. Maybe there's you've got a registry where those are stored, and that's where people can access them, and then you've got authorization and authentication that's allowing people to access those files and pull those files out. And then you're, like we were just saying, making sure that you've got some sort of logging of the interactions. Like these agents are making their own calls, so you're not just logging the prompt that the person's asking the system itself. You need to log the agents and understand what the agents are saying to each other, and so get ready for a lot of disk space to store these logs. But it's without it, you're setting yourself up for disaster. It's going to happen, but you need to be able to look back and say, okay, we can solve this by mitigating this, or at least letting people know that there was some sort of data breach or these systems work. It's a learning process. And you mentioned earlier, this is just months old. I mean, We've got MCP, we've got 808 security. Those are all things that are being put in play right now. And the world is changing and shifting underneath our feet every week.
It is. I mean, I like your advice, and I think enterprises should take that away, right? Assume, it's not just assume breach now, it's assume, right, action unintended, right? Or action unauthorized. Assume it's going to do something it wasn't supposed to do, whether it's pulling from YAML or it just decided to, right? That's, we know now at this point, that's how they work. So assume, right, action unintended. And then the other piece, right, least agency, I think, right, least privilege, we already understand. Least agency, I think, will be, it's a great way to describe what we're trying to do. Like, the fewest actions you could possibly take is the best option, not, hey, the world's your oyster, because we don't want that. We already know that.
It's also a token waste too. I mean, there's a cost to like it do, right? So so if it just by limiting what they can do can limit the cost, and we're all seeing the cost going through the roof.
Wait, so security is actually improving cost? Like, wait a minute.
I did not say that.
Okay, that's what we want to be able to say that. We're thinking, but we're not ready to say that, unfortunately, this time. And now we're out of time. That's a wrap for this episode of Pop Goes the Stack. But hey, please subscribe before we circle back becomes we notify affected users.